Right. So, couple of things, Aman. One is obviously I need to send you your assessment, which I'll send you probably after this session. I need to write the feedback up and just send it over so that you should have it, with you today. The other bit that we'll do is obviously looking at, the last learning outcome of this particular unit, which is marketing, that we've started about a couple of weeks back. Because we've not had one or two sessions in the middle, I'm just going to do a bit of a detailed recap so that, we are able to refresh in terms of what we've covered so far. Now, the let's put it this way. So you're doing level 3, obviously, and in this level 3, what we've done is we've learned in the first unit, which is business environment or how businesses operate essentially. 3.23, we've learned the structures of businesses, different types of, businesses, private, public sector. And then we also looked at, certain basics of other functions which are involved in businesses, things like HR, a bit of accounting. We also looked at certain things like legislation, environment, how the business environment or the government legislation actually affects businesses, and to a certain extent we also covered in the last learning outcome things like how do businesses go global, why do they go global, and in some cases how the environment and rules and regulations, external and internal factors affect the business. Now, when we took up this particular unit, the follow-on unit of marketing principles and techniques, here in this particular unit, very interesting unit, a very lively topic. In this particular unit, we started off by understanding certain basics of, marketing. Now, this is one unit which hopefully you will study going further at, going further into other levels like level 4, if you and go, end up going into uni. At some stage, this will be a unit which will kind of break up into various other, specialist fields. So at level 3, what we are looking at doing is we are kind of overarchingly studying the key reasons of why marketing is important as an activity for business. What are the different types of marketing activities which the businesses can undertake? And then we also looked at in the learning outcome 1 things like the different segmentation. So how do we segment markets? What is a marketing mix? So there's 4 P's of marketing which we are traditionally aware of: price, place, promotion, product, have been expanded into 7 P's. And these 7 P's of marketing include other 3 P's which are quite modern and they've been introduced a few years back. How the marketing mix, the organization uses it to kind of position, segment, and target, their products and services to relevant audiences. We also looked at how marketing mix, can help companies to, adapt or make decisions. So a typical example would be that, say, Marks and Spencer was late to adopt the online strategy. Tesco, in the case of retailers, has been a late entrant to adopting online technology, and as a result, they have reoriented their business, wherein they are able to now attract customers not through just the stores but also through the online portal or online web marketing channel. Now then we went on to learning outcome 2. We basically looked at things like what is market research, what are the types of basic research which companies undertake, and how the research helps in kind of streamlining, let's put it this way, how the research helps them get hold of competitor information from the market. How does it help them give knowledge and information which is required to differentiate and also to look at, appropriately positioning and segmenting their products so that they're able to attract more customers. Now here in the distinction task, what we have to look at is pick up a particular product. And in this case, we have to look at, basically talking about a specific type of, marketing technique so that we are able to then use that marketing research and a technique which is either, primary research, secondary research, quantitative, qualitative research, and show how the company has used that research to kind of, make its products or services better, or in this case, gain more revenue or gain more customers. So you could look at an example of Marks and Spencer, Marks and Spencer Food. They've been a leader in that field, and but in certain other areas like when we look at clothing, Or when if you pick up an example of Tesco, you can clearly highlight that they have done research to see that they were missing out on customers, and their customers were actually looking at shopping for electricals, telecom, and other products with other retailers, and as an offering they did not have that. Even the example of Sainsbury's could be taken, wherein Sainsbury acquired Tesco is because they felt that electricals, electronics, telecommunication products are important. And as a retailer, or as a grocery retailer, as a retailer which provides home furnishing, grocery products, they did not have that. And the fastest way for them to be able to catch up in this business was to acquire the business rather than start from scratch. And that was basically based on research that they've done on their marketing mix and finding out where they were losing out customers. In learning outcome 3, what we primarily looked at was, once the research is done, how do we get meaningful interpretations from that research, and how does technology to a certain extent help us in interpreting that knowledge and information, and then to a certain extent how these are then integrated into vision and mission of the company, helps in formation of marketing objectives, and then long-term planning is done basis the gap areas which are found from research. Now, in the last learning outcome of what we are looking at doing in this particular unit would be to try and understand the role of e-marketing, online marketing, e-marketing, digital marketing is all, these are different connotations of the word, and we'll go through the definitions, but predominantly it means the same: e-commerce. So why is e-commerce now important, for businesses? What kind of methods they can reach, using the internet to go out to their audiences, the type of products and services which can be provided, and why is branding also which is a traditional element in terms of marketing strategies, is important in the strategy, or online marketing strategy for companies. And briefly we'll look at the benefits of online marketing or e-marketing as compared to traditional marketing techniques, to understand why is it cheaper to advertise, or why is it cheaper to go out and do an outreach to customers from a perspective of selling some of these products and services online. And then the distinction tasks that we'll cover with 1 or 2 slides would be to look at giving you an idea that how companies measure the effectiveness of online marketing, because at the end of the day this has become one of the largest channels and is going to traditionally overtake, or I think if I remember correctly, one of the studies which came out from WPP this year, Sir Martin Sorrell basically talked about the importance of online marketing, wherein I think the online marketing has now overtaken the traditional media, which is TV, billboards, print advertising, and it's become it's increasing further and further, and there's a gap which is being created wherein a lot of companies are only looking at now developing marketing strategies to get to customers through the online route as against the traditional route. So we look at some examples of that just to understand how companies look at creating e-marketing strategies, and what are the various ways they evaluate whether the promotion that they've done through the online route, like Facebook promotion, Twitter promotion, or promotions or listing of their products on other places like Amazon, eBay, is helpful for them to be able to increase their business or increase the outreach to customers. Is that okay?
That's right.
Right. Now, what I'm going to do is, before I go into online marketing, what I want to basically do is do a quick refresh for you to understand the different channels of marketing. Right. Now, these are things that we are just discussing because what I want to do is, before we develop a bit of understanding on the different techniques which companies use for marketing, we should also know, at least from a singular perspective, of what are these marketing techniques. So when you look at direct or online marketing, this particular model is adopted by companies because they want to look at developing a direct relationship with the customer. So sometimes you will also see connotations of words being used like B2B, B2C, or D2C. Now B2B is business to business, B2C is business to consumer, D2C is direct to consumer. So when we look at online marketing, most companies have the ability to outreach to the customers directly, and they in turn cut out the middlemen or the, say, distribution in the middle. So let's look at some of the terms, very broadly to understand before we get into, e-marketing or online marketing. Now, basically, we are looking at things like there is something called new direct marketing model. So in this particular model, what we look at is, I will explain in a slide, what are the benefits of direct marketing. Online marketing is one of the mediums through which companies go directly to consumers or direct to consumers. So we need to understand the benefits of why companies are now mostly FMCG, fast-moving consumer good companies, companies which sell or manufacture products and services, even in the services sector, are now deciding to go to consumers directly by cutting out the middlemen, which we will study. So growth and benefits, we look at what are the advantages and what are the routes through which they go to do direct marketing. So when you look at things like customer databases, companies require a lot of data about consumers to get to know them better and then reorient some of their campaigns so that they relate to the needs and requirements of the consumer. We look at forms of direct marketing, and one of the forms of direct marketing that we are going to study in this particular unit would be online marketing. Why is it important for the company to have an online presence? What are the challenges and promises or advantages, disadvantages of online marketing as a channel? And then what are the issues which companies can face because of online marketing? And those are the things that we will look at in this particular learning outcome. Is that okay? Now, let's look at the first option, which is direct marketing. Now, direct marketing is basically, as the word implies, it talks about going to consumer by cutting out the intermediaries or people who are in the middle. So if you look at a brand like Unilever makes a lot of products. They are pretty much in every segment of products that we use at home. Now, if they have to go to market, they currently use large retailers, distributors like Metro, Costco, Tesco. All these are large distributors or retailers, and through which they sell these products. Now, because they do not have a direct marketing model, in the sense they do not want to go to consumers directly, and because their products are sold in volumes, there in this case, they don't tend to do is they go directly to consumer. They basically go through intermediaries. Now, let's take an example of a company which wants to go to consumers directly, and what are the reasons they want to go to consumers directly. One of the reasons that you would see is because of a lot of competition now and a lot of competitor products available, most companies want to cut out the intermediaries or people in the middle and then go to consumer directly by offering that product. The second is, the second reason that I can think of would be the fact that some of these companies have products which are changing quite quickly. And because they're listening to their consumers, because of research, engagement with the consumers, and the changes they bring across in their products, what they want to do is they want to make sure that their current product life cycle is the product life cycle is current, and at the same point in time they offer products which their competitors are offering, or even better products than what competitors are offering, and that is why they want to go to consumers directly. And in some cases, you will see there is obsolescence which is happening. Because the rate and pace at which technology is growing, what we do get to see is that products do get obsolete, or they get, when you buy something from the market, you have an expiry level on the product. Say, for example, you buy milk from, a Tesco store or a Co-op store, it has a bit of an expiry date on it. Now, in order for them to ensure that their products remain current and competitive, they have to look at the option of direct marketing, because it could be margin pressures, it could be products which are changing quite quickly. They want to keep up with the competitors, offer better offerings in terms of better benefits to the consumers directly on the products. And these are the reasons that they look at picking up direct marketing. Now, what are the benefits for companies? We have discussed. So it could be increase in margin, faster time to market. They can showcase a variety of products. If you look at a television company like Samsung, now if they have a number of retailers across UK like PC Worlds, Currys, Dixons, and things like that, they have hundreds and types of models in televisions. They have LCD, plasma, OLED television screens, but they have lots of models which a lot of retailers will be reluctant to stock. So they start from 24-inch, 30-inch, 32, 37, 40, 42, 45, 47. So imagine if a retailer has to display all these products, they might just have 50 television sets out on open on display. And because they have so many retail outlets in which they have to sell to consumers, that would mean a stocking an inventory of maybe 5 to 6,000 products, which are just display products. So in those cases, what the companies tend to do is they advertise easily a lot of range in terms of length and breadth of the products through the online channel, and that helps them keep inventories low. The orders which they receive are manufactured just in time, and those are the benefits for manufacturers or companies which are selling to consumers directly. The benefits to buyers are benefits things like convenience, ease of shopping online. You can sit within the your home on a cozy sofa, and then you can do shopping through the online channel. Now, the other access would be they can get to see a lot of products which they do not see sometimes in retail stores. So sometimes you go out and do a bit of shopping, but you don't find the size of the item to your requirement, and you have a word with the store manager, some of the people in the store team. They say, okay, this product is available online, please order online. So the benefits would be that in some cases manufacturers have a benefit, but the buyers also have a benefit, is that they can see a variety of products when they look at the benefits of buying directly from the company, because the stockist or the retailer might not have it. Now, online channel is enabled a lot of comparison which can be done. So you can compare products. So you have products like Money Supermarket, comparethemarket.com, and theseconfused.com. These companies have developed features wherein buyers can actually do comparison of products even before buying it. So when you buy insurance, for example, or you buy, you're looking at shopping for mortgage, for example, holidays, for example, you can easily compare products which are virtual products or services that you're going to buy, and these are benefits to buyers. Now, obviously, online channel, as you've seen, from the time that you've had access to the internet, you would have seen that the user interface, the experience of browsing the websites, and all those things are continuously improving. And there are new technologies which are coming in, which makes or gives you a total interaction. A simple example that I would give is, if you go onto the Amazon website and you want to see a number of images of a particular product, you want to rotate the product, you want to magnify the product, you want to see it. These are features which have been added on, in the last couple of years, and this has given tremendous interactivity, to buyers to be able to experience the product. And as a result, what is happening is that you are able to kind of interact with it and kind of see the details of the product even before you buy. Is that okay?
Right.
Now let's look at the third cog in the wheel, which is sellers. So in some cases you do not in some cases what we do see is the companies, large companies, still prefer to have sellers or intermediaries in the middle, even if they have an online presence and they want to go to directly, they want to offer their services directly to consumers. And that model is what you get to see in the form of franchises. So if you look at McDonald's, if you look at Subway, you look at KFC, some of these, food chains or restaurants which have franchise models, but they control the supply chain in the background, because when you have a McDonald's burger, say in Rochdale, or you have a McDonald's burger in city centre in Manchester or somewhere else in London, the taste of the product, the quality of the product, the way it's served, the way it tastes is exactly the same. So here, in some cases, companies prefer to have intermediaries, and in those cases, what they do is they open, say, an example of a franchise, and that franchise, they basically make sure that they follow the guidelines, the quality assurance processes, the raw material and the supplies provided, and that helps them expand their businesses quickly to service the demand of customers in different places. Now, it also frees up their time to be able to build relationship with customers, because if they get involved in the business directly, say for example McDonald's, sticking to what we've spoken about, it's present in over 170 countries. And now, if they get into opening stores on their own, and they have in excess of 140,000, outlets across these countries. So if they look at opening everything up themselves, then they cannot do the better part of the other functions which are required in marketing activities, which is looking at, building relationship, new product innovation, or, look at competitors and other bits and pieces. So their for them, the benefit is to have intermediaries as franchises, and these franchises help build, certain parts of the business, like build customer relationship. In most cases, they kind of, let's put it this way, they kind of dictate what kind of percentage margin or profitability these franchises achieve. And in some cases, some markets, it is important for them to have intermediaries, because if they want to expand into a new country, open operations, they will take a lot of time to go in, develop that expertise, and then start to develop business. But as against, if they appoint intermediaries who understand the business and know the market, know the language, for example, as a barrier, then they are able to establish operations of that particular product, or of that particular service that they are looking at selling quite quickly. Now, in some cases, it brings them flexibility, because in some places they might not want to invest, and in those cases what they look at is, okay, even giving a little higher profit margin would mean that it should not bring any sort of negative repercussions for them in a long-term perspective, because they're not very sure of accessing or investing in that market. And sometimes you look at reasons, which is, there are places in which the company might not be able to service or provide facilities because of government legislation, and in certain cases they have to have access to these intermediaries to be able to set up business. So if you look at Middle East, for example, you cannot open up a franchise or cannot open up a business, because the governments there typically have a larger stake, or the local person in the business has to have a larger stake. So those are reasons why sometimes you will still see, if the companies choose direct marketing as a channel, they will still have intermediaries from that aspect. Now, some of the other slides, quickly going to go through. These are just to give some background information about, before we lead up to the topic of e-marketing, is what is a customer database. Now, database is nothing but an organization of a number of pieces of information neatly structured into tables and rows and columns, so that when you have to retrieve information, you can do that. Now, customer database would be an example, would be a collection. It will be a collection of information about individuals or people, and it will have a lot of information related to things like geographics, demographics, their behavioral data, the buying data, and things like that. And a simple example of that would be when we look at Tesco's club card. Why do you think Tesco has a club card scheme and ASDA does not? Because Tesco believes in their long-term strategy, and the vision is that if they better understand their customers in terms of their buying pattern, what they spend, how much they spend, then they are able to predict what kind of business, in terms of what kind of inventory products the customers will buy, and this helps them in doing inventory planning and a lot of other things. So a simple example is, they believe in the loyalty scheme, because that helps them collect data about customers' buying preferences, patterns, shopping habits, and that helps them position some of their products in stores accordingly to the demands and needs of the customers. Now, there are different forms of direct marketing. We are going to be focused on something called e-marketing or online marketing. Now, the idea of showing this is that there are different channels of marketing which we can do. There is personal selling or direct marketing, which is through network marketing. There is direct mail, which is catalog, a type of catalog. You send letters out, or you send catalogs out, which is printed manuals. So, for example, when you look at these companies which basically, large warehouses, sometimes they print catalogs, and you get these catalogs through the post free of cost. The idea is they want to basically promote the concept of direct ordering. You have telephone marketing. You have direct response or direct to television channels, QVC, and these shopping networks which you get to see on Sky and Virgin, which broadcast every day. They do demo of the products and everything, and they are also looking at marketing, which is a direct channel. Kiosk marketing. Sometimes when you visit big malls and places, you will see that people tend to take up kiosks or canopies they are put up, and the idea is they are looking at reaching out to consumers directly. You have something called digital direct marketing, a lot of newsletters, a lot of discount coupons like Groupon. They are basically examples of direct digital marketing. And then we have the concept of online marketing. So online marketing is a channel through which you reach out to a customer consistently and use different mediums to be able to reach out to the customer in this particular channel. And that is what we are going to be kind of focusing on. Now, there are reasons why some of these companies go for direct marketing, and it's pretty evident on the slide is that you see direct marketing allows companies to reduce prices, give promotions, and run promotions which are separate from being what is being run in stores, and at the same point in time can do offers. And because of the use of IT and the development in IT and advancement in IT, these offers can also then be reminded, sent across as reminders, coupons, gift vouchers and things like that. They can be personalized. It does not cost the company that much. Say, for example, if they have to do a direct mailing campaign, which would mean that if Marks and Spencer has to send an offer out to its customers, 23 million customers in the UK, if they print a letter out, post it in the post, that would cost them maybe 35, 36p plus the cost of posting, about £1. But if they have to do the same promotion through the online route or direct marketing route, they might just prepare a newsletter, attach a coupon in it, which can be redeemed online or in store, and that pretty much will cost them 1/10 or a fraction of a cost as against the logistics which is involved in doing postal marketing or direct marketing through the traditional medium route. Now, because of the IT involvement, what we do get to see is that there is a lot of ease to collect, analyze, and interpret data. So if you send out a newsletter, you can pretty much see how many of them have been opened, deleted, opened, read, and deleted, things like that. And that is something which is made possible by use of IT, which has been built into the channel of e-marketing. Now, this form of channel is traditionally cheaper and allows more budget, allows, maybe as we use the term, allows the dollar to be stretched into larger number of activities as against the traditional media. And in some cases, it is already now proven fact that in some sectors and in some types of products and services, this is the most relevant medium as compared to the traditional mediums of TV, print, and advertising, TV, print, and radio. Now, there are some elements of direct marketing which also use a combination of two channels. So there would be something like catalog marketing, but you also would do a repetition or mix that particular medium of promotions from a company's perspective by doing a replica of that campaign into online marketing. An example of that is sometimes you get to see that when you shop at Tesco's, Aldi's, Sainsbury's, an example which I'm taking up, you will see that you go into the store, you buy a lot of products, but towards the tail, you see a catalog also being there, right? That catalog might not necessarily have the products which are in store, but what they've started to do now is that because they have lots of different sections within the store, like home furnishings, for example, electricals, telecom, like phones. So what they tend to do is, in order for them to engage with customer, what they tend to do is they will have a lot of that displayed in the store. But apart from that, the products which are not physically displayed in the store would be printed out in the catalog, and that would give that will be an extensive form of having product cataloged or services which they are selling cataloged in the print magazine. So Tesco at some point in time would have put some sort of discount vouchers in the catalog itself, and those then will be reinforced when they send out newsletters or emails or even something in the post to the customer, telling them that, okay, you can get 10% discount, or there's a discount coupon that you can avail, which is actually based in the catalog, and that can be collected from in-store, from the magazine. So here you will see that some companies tend to use traditional, marketing channels with the combination of online and catalog marketing channels, because they have to have these channels, they have to be seen to be promoting and providing offers through all different types of channels. But the budgeting and the way they tend to market tends to vary between various channels. And sometimes you will see that they will have to look at the demographics of the consumer, because as you know, a lot of young consumers would want to go to internet and do the shopping, but a lot of consumers traditionally want to come into the stores, see the product, feel it, touch it, and then buy it. So in those cases, they have to do a mix and match of both. And that is where sometimes online marketing poses a bit of challenge, and they have to use these mediums to mix and match in terms of going to direct forms of marketing. There is something called telephone direct marketing. Then there is something called television direct marketing, which is now being done by companies which predominantly sell products only through the TV. An example of that is a QVC network. And then we look at certain below the line, marketing, below the line techniques, which basically BTL as we call them. So these companies use kiosks or certain technologies to be able to do a reach out to consumers. And one of the forms that we get to see is primarily kiosks and canopies or small stalls which are put up, in large malls, and they are trying to do, real-time engagement with customers in a form of direct marketing. Now, digital direct marketing, the last one that we want to look at before we start to go into e-marketing would be, the advancements which are now happening in the e-marketing channel. Because e-marketing is such a vast term and it covers internet, what has started to happen is we have started to differentiate even between online e-marketing, which is one word or one type of direct marketing, and the digital use of digital technologies to do direct marketing. So what we are getting to see is mobile phone marketing. So if you've ordered a pizza from your local shop like Pizza Hut or Domino's, every Friday, every Saturday, you get a text because they have got your details on the database, and what they tend to do is push out messages because they know that on the weekends customers tend to order takeaways. So that is a form of mobile marketing through mobile channel, and that is directly coming to you because these customers, when you look at products and services in terms of food, would be direct to consumer. There's no point in the intermediary there because the customer will not order through an intermediary. But having said that, when you look at other apps like Hungry Kya and the other app which we look at, which is say Deliveroo, for example, these apps will allow you to go onto their website and then order something which is delivered from a particular restaurant that you want to order or a particular type of food. And these are using digital technologies, real-time technologies to be able to reach out to consumers. So both the aspects are correct. And some of the other aspects that you would have seen is podcast, video cast or vodcast as we call them, and interactive TV. So while you're gaming on the Xbox, PS4, sometimes you're able to do a bit of interaction. If you're playing multiplayer and you're interacting with your friends, or you're randomly, the computer is putting up players depending on the level. If you're deciding to play somebody on the internet, then it is able to bring that across to you through the route of interaction. And interactive TV, we have lots of channels now which allow you to interact on game shows and bingo channels, which in particular, as an example, would allow you to have interactive content being delivered to you through the television, and that is also considered digital marketing technique. I won't go into other details, but we'll straight away dive into something called online marketing, which is what is relevant to us. But that gives you some background in terms of why companies choose direct marketing, what are the different channels of direct marketing, and in that we are going to study online marketing as one of the, or e-marketing as one of the channels to understand the reason why it is becoming popular with companies, businesses, and why this is now garnering more and more spend from companies, and it's a more serious strategy being put in place because it allows them to interact with consumers pretty much directly, instantly, anytime, anywhere. Now, internet was introduced, quick background, internet, when did it come across? So 1995, Tim Berners-Lee actually introduced the internet, and it allowed, initially before that, it was used by the US military, and they had created networks to share information in different locations, so ARPANET and DARPANET. But after that, Sir Tim Berners-Lee actually was able to create the hypertext markup language as a protocol, which led to the creation of internet. Now, internet has grown tremendously. There is no way that we can imagine life nowadays without internet or without Wi-Fi. So internet has become a space which basically is a large collection of websites, post boxes as you call it, and that has a lot of information stored in it, which we want to retrieve. And that's the reason why online marketing or internet marketing is becoming important. Terms which I mentioned earlier: B2C, B2B, C2C, consumer to consumer. So if you look at one of the key sites, which is Gumtree, in which customers are selling products to their to other customers, is an example of C2C business. And consumers to business is an example when you look at sites like eBay, when you are selling, products. It could be bought by consumers, it could be bought by a customer, it could be bought by businesses. And this is an example of Amazon, for example, is an example of C2B business, because Amazon is a platform. There are lots of businesses which have listed their products through stores, and these stores then end up selling products to consumers, oblique businesses, and is example of C2B business. Now, definition wise, I've already explained. B2C involves selling goods and services to consumers directly. B2B will mean you're predominantly trying to sell your products and services to businesses. C2C is consumers selling products to consumers, example Gumtree. And in some cases, when you look at consumers selling to consumer, they are looking at taking help of things like blogs. Sometimes we will also see listings or directory listings being created in the case of Gumtree, wherein you will list out a product, the service is free of cost, but once you sell the product, the company, because they have created a channel in which they will charge you a slight bit of transaction, make their price for providing those services. Consumer to business involves consumers communicating with companies to send suggestions and companies via website. So when you look at companies like Trustpilot, when you look at companies like Amazon, which basically collect consumer opinion and then pass it on to businesses, which is relevant because they want to collect data. So database companies, for example, will actually collect a lot of data from customers, consumers, and actually sell it to businesses who want to reach to the same consumer. So in our case, as an example, we buy, sometimes we end up buying a database because we want to reach out to learners who want to study courses with us, but we get that database from a business, which is actually, they see us as a consumer, but when we sell that product to, or use that database to sell our products and services or outreach to consumers, again, we are reaching out to consumers. So this is a bit of a reverse. But because we are a business and somebody else is also a business, we are their customer, and they are our customer when we sell our products and services. So it becomes consumer to business. Now, there are various ways through which you can do e-marketing, or you can look at creating online presence. Now, the traditional ways are, we look at creating websites. And the other way, the other things which have come across now in the last couple of years with the popularity of eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, is that they have become large online stores, and in which you can go and create a store to list and sell your products. So basically, we are looking at the process of e-marketing, online marketing happening through the route of websites. And in some cases, you have distribution stores, or, I would put it this way, the modern way of online distributors like Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, which will allow companies to come in and set up their stores to be able to sell and offer their products and services to consumers. Now, in the websites, we have a slight bit of differentiation between corporate and marketing, is because when you look at Unilever, as an example, which I took earlier, they make a lot of products, is one of the largest fast-moving consumer goods brand in the world. What they do is, they have a corporate website in which they will list out their products and services, what they do, what they provide, why the business is, what is the ethos and all that stuff. But they could also have a marketing website in which they might be promoting certain products directly, or they might be doing, having a marketing website wherein they're collecting data on a new type of product which has been introduced. And that is where they would want then choose to go direct to consumers for reasons of research, collection of data, trial campaigns, pilot as they do. And in some cases, some of them would get into selling some of these products directly, because they feel that the intermediaries and distributors are not able to make investments into these channels, and that is why they will get into it directly. An example of that would be Pepsi. So Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they do most of their, not most, 99% of their sales comes from distribution channels or bottlers. But they have in the past gone into product categories wherein they have, chips and fries and, different types of flavored drinks apart from the fizzy drinks, that they've tried to introduce to diversify into other portfolios or other markets. And that is where what they've done is they've created marketing websites in which they only advertise those products so that they are able to sell them to consumers directly. It's a small percentage of the overall business, but that helps them keep a pulse on the customer requirements and the products which in some cases the bottlers, the distributors are unlikely to stock, then can be routed to consumers directly from that channel. Now, corporate website, is designed to build customer goodwill, basic definitions of why you would have a corporate website. You talk about your vision, you talk about you give out information about the board, the management, what are the policies, procedures, things like corporate social responsibility. You would have annual journal reports on it, a whole host of information that you can print out to share the activities of companies and company activities which it is doing in different places, different countries. And this is primarily done to provide information to the customer. It's primarily done to look at a bit of excitement, prelude to if they are introducing new products, to build up the atmosphere of creating a bit of excitement, and to a long-term perspective, building relationship with customers. So they might run promotions from the corporate website, which would mean that they want to look at database collection, interaction with consumer, collect feedback, and those are ways through which they can do it through the corporate website. A marketing website is primarily designed to engage customers so that it leads to the end game of purchasing or selling of something, right? So when you look at a company creating a website which primarily has an e-commerce engine on it, the idea is they want to sell products, they want the customers to be able to buy from them directly, and that's one of the reasons why they have created the marketing side of the website. Now, the website, when we look at, say, for example, the effectiveness of websites, this is a journal slide, but looking at, in most cases, to have an online presence, a lot of companies are now spending a lot of money to make their presence online quite attractive and quite distinctive. And the reason why they want to do it is you have that 3-3 rule, 3 seconds, 30 seconds, and 3-minute rule. When the websites are designed, that if your customer comes in and stays on your site for 3 seconds, it will stay for 30 seconds. And then at the end of the day, if you are selling something, they will end up buying a product or service from your website, and that would take up to 3 minutes. So this particular rule has come up in the past, has been a recent introduction, and a lot of agencies, when they design websites, the idea is to attract them to, make them attractive for consumers, so that you are getting the message across to the audiences quite quickly in a very crisp, clear fashion, and it makes the usability of the website quite useful. That means you look at things like a lot of consumers are now getting information about products and services which companies sell through the mobile phone, through the tablet. There are different screens. So a website now needs to be responsive. That means if you open the site up on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a PC, on a Mac, they should be easily accessible, they should be presentable, they should still have the same information, and they should be responsive. So this is where most companies are getting into now, looking at making the websites effective. Now, in order for them to achieve the objective of sales, in order for them to be able to achieve the objective of getting the information across to consumers, there is something called 7 C's which have been designed, just like the 7 habits of consumers. This 7 C's kind of dictate when a new website or an online strategy is being created for a company. They look at these things. So you look at the context. That means, why do you want this? Why do you want to have an online presence? What are the basic reasons of having the online presence? You look at content, what will be put into the website, what kind of consumers you want to interact with, which is community, how much of customization goes in. That means, how do you want it to be differentiated? What is the language of communication? Is it informal, formal? You have a combination of both. What kind of connections you want to establish at the end of the day in terms of recall. So sometimes you get to see on AdWords, radio AdWords, television AdWords, you will see that, towards the end of the advert, there's a bit of a jingle, 2 or 3 second jingle, which is a typical music segment that they add, so that whenever you hear that, it's trying to build that recall with the consumer. So Sometimes you will see websites try to create connections wherein they'll give you a bit of a pop-up saying, do you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter? They might, if it's a e-commerce website, they might give you an offer if you're closing the website down, that you can avail a 10% discount, and if you still buy this by such and such date, or something like that. And last but not the least, because if you're trying to engage with customers online, the e-commerce site, the financial side of the website needs to be secure, encrypted, and customers need to feel confident that they are able to confidently, and come in and interact with peace of mind that their information in terms of financial data is kept securely. So those kind of things then are looked at. Now, a lot of companies also do cross promotions. That means you will see sometimes banner advertising, you will see display AdWords, AdWords for which they pay for, and this is to prop up traffic to the website. So in the forms of online advertising, which is done just like we see in traditional media like newspapers and TV, what we sometimes see is that people would advertise and buy AdWords, or do Facebook advertising, and sometimes this brings into the idea of doing this is to try and bring traffic to your site. So people do, when we talk about the concept of online advertising, you have display ads, you have search related words, which is SEO, and sometimes you do online classified ads, which is when you search something on Google, on the right hand side you will see some classified ads which will start coming to sponsored content. The idea is to drive traffic to your site. Apart from that, what we do see in terms of how companies kind of do online marketing would be that they look at banner AdWords. So if you're browsing a particular article or a product that you want to buy on an A site, Google in the background or your search engine in the background collects the data, and then when you try and browse some other site, it will bring up that same product from different companies which is being offered, and that is basically through banner advertisement, or the way it is able to read your browsing preferences. So there are different forms of AdWords which can be placed by companies on, not on their site, but on sites which drive traffic to their sites, or make the customer aware when they are browsing online of the products and services which are available from a particular site to buy and purchase. And this is normally through the route and medium of something called paid online promotion. And online promotions then utilize different techniques. There could be banners, there could be interstitial ads, which is when you're reading a particular page of content, in the middle you will find some sort of an advert, but the article continues once you scroll through the advert. There are pop-ups which are coming up, and there is rich media that you get to see when you interact. Say, for example, want to watch a video on YouTube, you will see that sometimes if you're watching too many music videos, you can pretty much find and click on a video, but after a while what it tends to do is it plays a segment of an advert before that video is played. So rich media adverts are in real time. The analysis is done by the search engine, and what they are able to do is pick up what you're trying to browse, and then it starts to place adverts which you can interact with, skip, forward, replay, and things like that. Is that okay? Okay, so then what we look at is how do these AdWords get placed? What are the various techniques which companies use to buy this inventory online to be able to do promotions? So some of the inventories are bought through Google and Yahoo, and you have Microsoft. They have divisions which basically sell inventory, things like AdWords, because all the websites are listed. They have search engines like the Yahoo engine. You have Bing and you have Google, which basically index and search every website. So sometimes when you have to reach out to customers, what companies will have to do is they have to place AdWords or buy inventory, as we call it, to be able to place AdWords to drive traffic to their sites. Because there are billions and billions of websites right now. I think the last count which I looked at was about 4.3 billion websites are currently registered in terms of domains. So when you have so many websites, how do you bring your product or your website onto the top search and kind of make it evident from other sites or other competitors? Then in those cases, what companies do is they invest in something called online promotions, and this promotion then involves the buying of inventory through large platforms, which is like Interactive, Google, Bing, and they basically then sell you AdWords or inventory that you can place to drive promotion or link searches in terms of in terms of consumers' browsing preferences. Now, there are other forms of online promotion, things like content sponsorships, alliances, affiliate programs, and viral marketing. Now, very briefly to explain, what does this mean? When you look at, say, for example, placing, online promotion AdWords through these 4 different types of mediums. Now, here, what we do get to see is that when you look at content sponsorship, now, an example of this would be that sometimes you see article or product reviews or blogs written about certain types of products, and what the companies do is they pay for this particular blog or the article to be written, and they want a certain type of advertorial which is written in the form of an editorial, but because it is paid for, it then constitutes something called an advertorial and falls under something called content sponsorship. An example of that would be that sometimes companies do not want to morally and ethically cross lines of promoting benefits of products that they are selling, right? Because there's a differentiation they want to have by doing this, and that differentiation can only be achieved if they do content sponsorship. So you look at an example of, there is no correlation between, say, Omega sponsoring PGA tours of golf, correct? But yet they are the official timekeepers of the event. Now, because they are wanting to promote their services, and they say, okay, timekeeping is very important in terms of timing. When you look at golf, in terms of shots or golf, they see this as a value addition, or as a kind of a proposition which links them to the kind of prize money which is associated, the people who love to play golf, because golfers traditionally, it's an expensive sport. So people who like to play golf would want to have engagement on that side, and that is what they've identified through research. Now, this is my take on it, but some people might differ. So what they tend to do is, then when you see AdWords or certain events which are happening, they tend to do sponsorship for these events in order to kind of promote the presence of the brand, and slowly, indirectly, start to get a positioning within consumer minds, to be able to kind of make them align to their products, right? Another example which I would give you is, when you look at content sponsorship, is that when you look at pharmaceutical companies, now if they have introduced a new drug and they feel that this drug is revolutionary, now obviously they can go out and shout about it and create a lot of spend a lot of money on the benefits of the drug and things like that. But sometimes they have to draw a line in terms of over aggressively promoting their drug and the benefits of those drugs. And what they then do is, they want to promote it, but they take the route of something called content partnerships. So here they would encourage independent, say, consultants or people within the industry, within the medicine or medical industry, to talk about the products, sponsor seminars, and that is where they want to create a presence wherein they want to highlight that why this drug is better, and subtly go across and put the message. Similarly, other forms that we look at is alliances. Now, sometimes you see that sometimes some companies which provide similar services, and if they are dominant within the market, they tend to form an alliance, right? And that alliance basically helps them square the market. So 2 large companies like HLL, when you say Unilever, and you look at P&G, they pretty much manufacture most of the products that we use at home. Things like detergent, washing powder, soap, and all that stuff. So when you look at that, they do not have an alliance, they have a rivalry. But in some cases, when they introduce something which is going to be revolutionary, or say, for example, on certain objectives which they are trying to drive from a corporate perspective, things like corporate social responsibility, environment, waste management, they tend to form an alliance. And that is where the leaders in the industry tend to work on common objectives, and you get to see alliances being formed, and that is where they will have joint promotions being done, because it helps them pool the budget to be able to get that message out there to consumers from an aspect of social benefits. Affiliate programs on the website talk about, if your website gets a lot of traffic, sometimes they put in a content in your website which will be a link, and that link would mean that if customers are referred through your website to us for shopping, then we will give you some part of commission, or we will give you some part of benefit, which could be financial, monetary, non-monetary benefit, and these would then constitute something called an affiliate channel. An example of this would be if a lot of developers who develop websites basically would recommend customers to buy hosting or website domains from a particular site, and if they refer and if they end up buying through their route, then you get certain pushbacks in terms of financial incentives and things like that, and that would mean affiliate programs which could be run on the online marketing route. Viral advertising would mean that you're looking at promoting something through all forms of medium online, and that would constitute something called viral marketing. So things like if you're wanting to promote that through your own website, through intermediaries website, through advertising and newsletters, that would all constitute something called viral marketing. Bit of explanation which I've given. So viral marketing would be looking at the version of word of mouth in the traditional route. So sometimes what you do is you've gone to a restaurant, you had a good experience, you had the good food, and when you get an opportunity, you try to do word of mouth marketing. That means you're talking to your friends and family, and you say, okay, the other day I went to this restaurant's food was quite good, and that is the form of marketing which you've done inadvertently without having any financial benefits, but you have kind of endorse the food of that particular restaurant or that place where you had that dinner, lunch, whatever. And a similar version of that, typically on the online medium, which is the virtual space in the internet medium, happens, and that happens through the word of viral marketing. So you would have bought insurance, for example, from a company, and you found that the insurance was pretty cheap and was effective, the service was quite good. What you've done is your friend, if it's come to you and they say, yeah, I'm looking for buying insurance, car insurance, what company did you use? Do you have any preferences? And what you do is you forward that email message saying that, okay, this is the company that I've used, or you forward or you talk about it saying that why don't you go and company out on the website, and they were quite good, and that tends to be something called viral marketing. Now, other bits that we will look at in terms of one of the other aspects of, because online is so vast, the other aspects which has started with the advent of Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter has been from when you look at 2005 onwards. You look at Airbnb, the concept of they are the biggest kind of hotelier group in the world, even though they do not have a single place of their own. And this concept of social networks, or SNS, social network, SNS, which is social network marketing, has started off after the advent of platforms like Facebook. You look at Twitter, Airbnb, you look at Trivago, things like that, which has basically promoted the concept wherein consumers get onto it, and then from the other side, consumers offer benefits and services, and as consumers, they are able to then exchange, promote this concept of exchange of goods and services in return. So if you're going on a holiday and you travel out from your country during summer and to go another location, what Airbnb as a concept has done is they've basically said, okay, you can rent your home out for such and such amount, and some maybe another family who's looking at renting that place could rent that for a number of days and pay you in turn the charges which is for renting. And in between, because of the platforms which have created, and because this promotes this is through the concept of social networking, what Airbnb is been able to do is create a business model where they can take a percentage of the price being paid and they get the customers signed on to exchange their services, wherein you're looking at renting because you're traveling on holiday, and then they are also traveling out, which means it's consumer to consumer, but in the middle there is somebody which has created this network to be able to make available this concept of handshake through the social media route, and that is why we look at social media marketing. Now, let's look at the various channels very briefly. We can't go into details, but very briefly, just look at, what are the various channels through which online marketing is done. One of them is email. It's clear. There's no way, there is no need, I think, to explain email, but, this is the most cheapest, most effective, most quickest, and most productive form of, outreach which the companies can do in form of selling their products and services. Now there are lots. What are the drawbacks? Because there are so many emails which are sent on a daily basis, what happens is you have now, because of legislation, an option to opt out or unsubscribe from unsolicited emails. So in Europe, there's a European regulation which allows consumers to opt out or unsubscribe from emails which have been received, and if you've not opted in for that. So email has become, the most common medium of online marketing. But the changes which are happening is that you can unsubscribe, remove yourself from the mailing list, and in some cases, when you sign up or buy any products and services, if they are collecting email address as one of your data, then that has to be permission-based marketing. That means if you say, I want to opt out, that means your data cannot be shared with third party to do, anything to do with e-marketing or online marketing. Yes?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you buy insurance, you're buying services. Sometimes they say your data will be shared with third-party, agencies and things like that. And if you click that checkbox or tick that checkbox, it basically means you're opting out, and that means they need to seek permission before they look at using your data or your email for any sort of marketing or promotions. Now let's look at briefly. So online marketing, we've looked at a couple. How we do it. One is, you look at AdWords, you look at online promotions, you look at social media, you look at emails, and then you also look at blogs, and also look at content sponsorships. You look at affiliate marketing, viral marketing, and alliances that can be used. Now let's look at, in the last few slides, the importance and what are the challenges which online medium poses to companies. Now online medium is becoming the most important one, and that is because more and more content is now being created, consumed, distributed through the online route. I think 2 or 3 days back, you must have seen or heard the news that Disney, Rupert Murdoch, has actually decided to sell his Fox business, the business in India, Star Network, and a couple of other businesses to Disney. And they have acquired this for, about $80 billion. Now, the reason why this is happening is he does not see the future of television, which they are, giants of, surviving, because in the information age, in the internet age, there are companies like Google, Facebook, you look at Netflix, Hulu, all these kind of services, which are streaming services, will actually produce content, create content, and consumers will actually access that content through multiple channels. And they see that advertising on television is going to decline, which is the major source of revenue to produce program and content on that side. So with online marketing and online presence for companies increasing, one of the clear benefits which it brings across is that companies can build relationship with customers. They can improve sales by collecting data, because it all allows analytics and data in the background to be collected easily and stored and retrieved easily while they are browsing online. It allows them to communicate to the consumers directly about their services, product information, and that information can be provided in a variety of forms. An example here would be, if you go to Curry's store and you want to buy a television, you end up picking up a brochure. Sometimes you don't find the brochure next to the product. But if you go and want to get detailed information of the product, you might get some information from the sales guy there or the salesperson there. But they might not be able to tell you details like, without having to going online, things like, okay, what is the weight of the television? What is the resolution of the television? How many ports does it have, and things like that. So anything which is physical, they might be able to check and then give you the information. But anything which is integrated or inside the product, they might not be able to give you information of. And things like how many hours of screen life will it have. So most televisions have about between 60 to 80,000 hours. So what is the brightness, the contrast ratio? Now this information is easily available through the online route, because you can create a product flyer, and that product flyer, when downloaded or browsed by the customer, allows them to get the detailed form of information about the product. So online that way has become more important, because it allows you to put out maximum information possible for consumers, which they would want to get for the product before they want to purchase. Sometimes this bit of information is missed out when you're having an interaction face to face with a person within a retail outlet. Now, what are the, let's put it, the disadvantages for online in particular as a channel? One is sometimes you could face, sometimes what happens is you would have seen, even if you've unsubscribed from the mail, they send you an email from a different account. So it leads to a lot of irritation or frustration at your end that I've unsubscribed from the policies of, or the subscriber list of this company, but I'm still getting your emails. So if you look at large insurance companies like Aviva, Direct Line, they have lots of brokers. So if you have gone in to buy insurance from one of these companies, what they tend to do is they will say, if you even opt out, you've opted out from one database, but they will send you an email through the other database because they've sold your data off to other companies or affiliated companies. And that becomes an issue of irritation, because even if you do not want to receive a quote and you bought your insurance, you still continue to get those quotes, because there is somewhere, somehow, that data is still available on the online domain, which allows them to send this across to you. Now, one of the other bits, this is not a big challenge, but the other bit is that because a lot of information is now being stored online, what is now happening is that the information which is stored online needs security, and there's a lot of risk associated with where all your information is being stored, how is it being stored, how is it being retrieved, who has the access to be able to retrieve it or rights to be able to retrieve it. So you see the concept of cybercrime, you see the concept of hacking, you see the concept of data being stolen by breaking into servers, and those kind of issues are now coming into online marketing, wherein privacy of your data and your information is important, security of your data and information is important, because you use these things time and again to buy the same products and services from time to time, and you do not want to input that data. A simple example that I would give you is, if you do a bit of online shopping, once you put your credit card details in, Google Chrome notes that detail down and it gives you an option, save this as a password or save this information as a card. And what it does not store is just your customer validation code, CVV code. But rest of the card information, the name, expiry date, and everything, it stores. If you choose to say no, it doesn't store, but if you choose to say yes, it's still stored on your machine. Now, if you have some vulnerabilities on the browser, or if your machine is compromised through a virus, then sometimes this is the piece of information or data which hackers are after, because they want to get hold of your financial information or data which is stored through the browsing history, to be able to look at committing fraud or committing cybercrime. So direct marketing, when you look at, or online marketing, typically has some challenges, and these are being brought across in the form of advancements. So when you look at, when the internet came out, there was no something called, that data on the computers is stored in as zeros and ones, which is called the ASCII format. Now, encryption was introduced for internet and for the websites in general, sometimes in the early 2000s, when we had 8-bit encryption, that moved to 16-bit, 32-bit, I think it went to 64, 128, and today is 256-bit. That means any information which is stored, which is related to financial information related to your personal data, has to be encrypted and has to follow 256-bit encryption legislation, and that then can be stored securely so that it is virtually unhackable. So over the years, what the government has also done is they have introduced a lot of legislation to kind of deal with this particular kind of security, and create this security feature, so that consumers feel confident when they shop online, browse online, or create a presence online. Sometimes you will see websites, when you browse, they have a lock next to it. That goes to show straight away that they've bought an SSL certificate, they have a VeriSign, or companies which basically store data as intermediaries, and they have secure servers, and that gives you confidence, peace of mind to be able to shop on these websites, because you know that you're not buying something off a website wherein your data is not secure. So security and privacy has become an important aspect of important aspect in terms of features which need to be there when you're trying to build something called an online presence. Now, in addition to that, what you will also see is that websites nowadays, when you have an online presence, the companies, they have to have something called a cookie. Have you heard about a cookie? Cookies, yeah. So when you go onto a website, you start browsing, they normally ask you to accept a cookie. In some cases, if you click on that, it takes you to the terms and conditions, and it also explains what are the privacy guidelines, where the data is stored, how is it stored, why, when it is retrieved, how long is it stored for, and how is the data done away with. Because most places that you visit, the browser and the history is what they want to record. Where are you coming from? And the idea is that they want to reduce fraud, they want to reduce cybercrime. Companies have now been asked to have something called a cookie, which basically allows customers to, understand why and what data will be used or stored from their browser when they are on their website. And these are issues which are being put in place, or compliances which are being put in place to reduce, customer frustration in terms of irritation, unfairness, which is basically unfair use of personal data, and to maintain privacy, and then to reduce deception and fraud when we are transacting online, or when we are browsing online. So those are things which are, challenges which online marketing or e-marketing is currently facing, and that is where companies have been asked, because the governments have realized that this is something which needs to be present as a legislation, and here the companies have to comply by, looking at these guidelines, so that they are not able to collect data or collect more than what is required for them to interact with the consumer. Like credit card information, normally most companies which are e-commerce websites do not store. Reason they are not allowed to store is because of the fact it needs to be, even if they store the information, they cannot store the CVV numbers, because that can lead to immediate fraud or the use of information happening, even if it falls within the hands of the staff within the company. So some of these concerns have been turned into legislation as the technology is advanced, and this medium and the pace at which it is expanding. And the idea is to protect the consumer and consumer rights here, from, consumers from fraud and deception in particular. Now, we need to understand some of these acts which primarily, have been introduced over a point in time. And one of them is the Spam Act, and the other is the Trust Act, which most websites now need to comply to when they look at, what do you call, what do you call, let's put it this way, the capturing of data when somebody is browsing the internet. So when we look at, say, for example, the Spam Act, there are, obviously these were created by a consortium, which is the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C consortium, because there are websites which have to comply to laws and legislation within each individual countries. But as an overarching organizations which control the, the type of practices, and to have uniform practices developed across the countries, there are these two large consortiums which look at working within this field of, creating law and legislation. One is W3C and the other is World Wide Web Consortium. Now, once they created these acts, they have then been adopted to specific countries. So when you look at the Spam Act specifically, there is a Spam Act which was created, but we have a specific version of that act which is primarily related to the Information Commissioner's Office, ICO. And that ICO basically, looks at incorporating the Data Protection Act, and within the Data Protection Act, we also then look at what can the organization not do when it talks about, emails and the usage of emails. How much of emails will constitute a spam? So when you receive a email from a company, say 3 times a week, that can constitute a spam. But if you receive once, if you have subscribed to their newsletter or the website once a month, then it might not be considered spamming. But sometimes you get to see that when a lot of companies start sending you a lot of promotional emails, that can constitute something called spamming. So we have a few acts that we have to understand within the context of online marketing or e-marketing, and these will be typically 2 acts that we look at. One is Spam Act, and the other is, the Trust E Act. So that these are legislations which companies have to follow when it comes to internet, promotions or online promotions. Is that okay?
That's
Now, With this particular learning outcome, we have looked at a broad overview of marketing principles or techniques which the companies tend to apply when we look at, in particular, the various marketing techniques which the companies use to get across their products and services to consumers, to do an outreach to consumers. Now, e-marketing was specifically introduced as an LO4 is because this as a context has become more important than the traditional mediums of marketing which we study or you will get to study in more greater detail when you study them at level 4, 5 and 6. So you will probably end up studying individual mediums of things like traditional marketing routes. You look at studying consumer behavior, retail marketing, brand marketing, advertising, sales and promotion. But e-marketing in general has become so common and so intertwined with the activities of marketing that companies are doing now, that it has become important to have an overarching understanding of the concept. And because it is relatively new, we do see the development of e-commerce websites and things like that happening post 2005, or the dot-com bubble as we called it in 2000. You will see that this is now an integral part of all companies, or mostly companies which run, or which offer products and services. So every company now needs to look at an online presence. So when you see a new company being formed at the company's house, first thing that the company directors or the owners look at is, we need to have an online presence. We need to have an email address, and that has become so fundamental. And that is the reason why they must have not created a program or a business plan to do what kind of advertising or sales promotion they would do. But even at the time of registering a company, they have prioritized that we need to have a website, even if it's a 2-page website or a standing page and an opening page. We need to have a website, we need to have email. So it's become that integral, and that is why this has now been included in the basics of studying the marketing or marketing principles. Is that okay?
Completely fine, sir.
Good stuff. Now, in terms of, let's look at, do you have any questions for today's session?
I understood everything by day, actually. It was quite easy, I think.
That's fine. So what I would suggest now you to do is basically from, the Moodle, I'm going to send you a bit of a handout and a copy of this presentation on the email, in any case, in a couple of minutes after the session. But my suggestion to you would be that if you start looking at the assignment for this particular unit, and now that obviously we have no sessions, I can plan 1 or 2 sessions for other units. We can start the next unit, but the idea would be to try and do something maybe just after the New Year's on the 3rd or the 4th to restart, and it will give you a week or 2 to be able to do a draft assignment for this.
Right.
So you could look at the Word assignment, which is the Word assignment brief, which has a bit of a context next to it, or you can follow this and then start to prepare a draft with regards to finishing up this particular unit.
Right.
And if you need any additional help, some reading material, do let me know. And what I'm going to do today, in any case, after this session, is I'm going to try and include this particular handout, which is a generic one, which talks about introduction to marketing. And this particular bit, which I'm going to include, is about a couple of pages that I would suggest that you go and read through. But it will give you a very good overview of the 4 learning outcomes that we have actually covered, in about 40 odd pages for this particular unit. If you do not read anything else, my suggestion would be that this would be quite helpful for you to do your assignment. Right? Because whatever we have discussed, I have picked out some notes in particular for the slides from this particular ebook, which is Introduction to Marketing. There are some bits which will be directly related, and I think the learning outcome 3 that we did cover with regards to research and research techniques is explained quite well here. And my suggestion to you would be to go through this so that it helps you to understand some other learning outcomes and hopefully the assignment that you have to do with regards to this particular unit. Okay? Okay, great. Thanks for joining the session today, Qasim, and I will get this handout and the ebook and presentation to you shortly. We'll also try and send, I think in terms of the feedback, I'll be honest, it will be sometime tomorrow that I email that to you for the first unit.
Yeah, that's fine, sir.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining in, Aman, and you have a good evening going forward.
Thank you very much.